How's it, everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm testing out another Diadem string. It's been a while since I've tried a Diadem string. Diadem sent me this big box of the Nova rackets and a bunch of strings, and I just haven't really gotten a chance to get to them, so I thought I'd show them some love on this video. So today I'm testing out a very popular classic Diadem string, and that string is the Diadem Solstice Power. Let's check it out. So first off, I do want to mention that I do have an affiliate deal with Diadem. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they did send me a bunch of stuff and I'm very grateful to them, so I want to help promote their business. I do use a lot of Diadem strings and I like their Nova rackets. I really like their Elevate rackets, so if you guys are interested, check out the link in the description down below. That'll support the channel as well as the Diadem products themselves. Alright, so the Solstice Power. So before I started this channel, I was living in Japan for a few years and I was playing tennis up there. Very competitive tennis scene up in Japan. And around 2018, that's when I started to get into different types of equipment, strings and rackets. Before that, I never really put much thought into the equipment that I used. I used the Speed 2013 edition for a while. Before that, I was using the old classic head liquid metal Radical. But once I started to learn how to string myself, I kind of got into this phase where I wanted to test a whole bunch of strings. And the Diadem Solstice, only recently has Diadem really come out onto the mainstream, but the Solstice Power string, I did hear about on one of the Tennis Warehouse reviews many years ago around that time, and I did try it back then, and I don't really remember it that well, honestly. I played it for a few sessions, but it has been in the back of my mind, and when I found it in that box that Diadem sent me, I was really delighted to test it out again. So the Solstice Power, it's a very simple string. It's listed as a comfortably firm, soft copoly, but its claim to fame is its star core technology. So basically the string, the cross section is 6-sided and it's shaped like a star. So if you guys can see on the back of the package, sorry I opened it so it might be hard to see, but basically that's what the cross section looks like. It's if you cut it in half. It's shaped like a star and the sides are extremely pointy and sharp. When I was stringing this string, when I was weaving the crosses, I was kind of cutting my hands. My fingers were sore after I finished stringing this string racket. So the edges are very sharp. And I have reviewed the Solstice Black on this channel, which also has a star core technology. That was a very muted and dead string. I didn't really like it much at all. I'm hoping the Solstice Power, this version, the teal version, will play a little bit more lively, a little bit more crisp, and give me that touch in the front court game that I really like on my volleys, drop shots, and angles and such. Besides that, there are 5 gauges to this, so it goes as thin as 18 gauge, which is 115 millimeter, and it goes as thick as the 15 gauge, which is 135 millimeter. So a huge gauge range gives you feel or durability, whichever you want. I am testing out the 16L 125 millimeter gauge, and I got it in, of course, the Diadem racket that was sent to me, the Nova Tour. So I strung this at 54 pounds. It's a pretty wide open 16-19. 54 is usually the tension that I string in a 16-19 pattern. So it's been almost 7-8 years since I tried the Solstice Power. I don't really remember what it felt like. So I'm excited to get it out on the court and try it again. But before that, if you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. And if you're interested in trying any of Diadem products, check out that link below. That greatly supports the channel. So let's start with the pros of the Diadem Solstice Power. First off, don't let the name fool you. I would not classify this string in the power category. It doesn't provide as much free assistance with power as advertised and isn't a soft and comfortable string either, which surprised me because the package said it was supposed to be soft. I'll get into that later. But first, what I like most about this string is the massive spin potential. The star core really grabs the ball and provides incredible bite. I could really feel the grab on the string on my kick serve. This is where I judge a string spin potential most, as I can see just how good a string spin potential is by how high my kick serve bounces compared with other strings. I was getting the ball to bounce incredibly high with the Solstice Power. Not only that, I saw the ball diving down sharply, and this made aiming for that corner easy. I loved kick serving from the ad court because I was able to get the ball to dive sharply into the corner or onto the singles line, and the ball would kick out, forcing the returner off the court. The slice flat hybrid was also working well for me. The strings would grab well on the point of contact as I flicked my wrist, and my slice serve had some good mid-air curving action. This caused problems for my opponents as they had to adjust their return to make contact with the curving serve. As someone who likes to attack returns, I know just how big of a pain it is to try to attack a ball that curves suddenly in midair. The spin potential is also great on forehand ground strokes. I swing in more of a straight line with my semi-western grip, so I wouldn't say I'm a heavy spin hitter, but the natural motion of my swing provides decent topspin. The Solstice Power really brings the ball down on my aggressive strokes, and it has that last second dive inside the baseline that I need on my aggressive shots, especially the return. I would say I noticed the spin potential most on low forehands. Instead of slicing to try to lift the ball up over the net, I felt confident dropping the racket head and scooping the ball up with an abbreviated forehand motion. The strings grabbed the ball and pulled it up while also providing good spin for the ball to start descending right after crossing the net. Overall, I found it very easy to keep the ball low over the net with the spin generation of the Solstice Power, and that is something that is important for my game since I play primarily doubles. But even a more vertical swinger who plays singles can benefit from the spin of this string. Singles players can confidently swing up to get the ball to land deep, with the spin bringing the ball down inside the baseline with the added benefit of pushing their opponent back with heavy spin. Naturally, I also really like the Solstice Power on my slices, especially the backhand slice. My backhand slice motion actually accelerates through contact faster than my forehand slice, so I really noticed the gliding action on the slices. A few times on low slices, I actually cut the ball so hard that the underspin made the ball go up in midair to clear the net, then come down and skid on the ground. Although I said earlier that the Solstice Power isn't as powerful or as comfortable as advertised, I still found the string had some decent pocketing. I would really feel the pocketing on my volleys. I like to feel the ball sitting on the strings for a split second when I volley because it gives me better directional and depth control, especially when I'm approaching the net with a transition volley. That first volley is so crucial to keep low and away from the opposing net player, and I found it was pretty easy to do that with this string. Also, the pocketing gave me good punching power when I was aiming at my opponent's feet or into the gaps of the defense. It also had decent touch on my short game, which is probably thanks in part to the pocketing. This isn't the most crisp or responsive feel I've tried, but the pocketing allowed me to gauge my strength accurately when hitting touch and angle shots, and all around I found this string pretty playable. Overall, the incredible spin generation puts the Solstice Power in the upper echelons of spin strings I've tried in recent memory. Although it isn't as comfortable and soft as advertised, I personally like stiff strings, so it didn't bother me at all, and I found decent pocketing for my touch game. So now let's talk about the cons of the Diadem Solstice Power, starting with that lack of power and comfort. Diadem claimed this string was supposed to be soft, powerful, and comfortable, and I just didn't find that to be the case. Even strung in the Diadem Nova, which is an incredibly dampened racket, I could still feel the impact shock on off-center hits. I did string at 54 pounds, which I've been told is a pretty high tension, so maybe this string is just tension sensitive. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments. Also, is 54 really high? I used to string at 58, but I decided I wanted more power, so I recently started dropping the tension. Anyway, I would advise caution if you're thinking of trying the Solstice Power if you read it's soft. Maybe just stick to multi-filament. Also, for a string called Solstice Power, I didn't find much easy power with this string, especially when I hit outside the sweet spot. I found returning serves with this string to be especially challenging. I like to swing aggressively on returns. Couple that with the fact that the serve is usually my opponent's fastest shot, and that results in a lot of off-center hits. I dumped a lot of mishits into the net because I could just feel the string sapping the energy from my return. Also, my two-handed backhand suffered quite a bit, especially when I had to stretch and couldn't get a full rotation of the hips into my backhand. I also had issues with net clearance on my flat serves. It wasn't as bad on the slice serves because the ball would glide more horizontally on those, but when I'm hitting down with my flat serve, I was hitting the middle of the net, which meant even slight adjustments to my toss or contact made basically no difference. Because of this lack of energy return on off-center hits and short swings, I found playing defense to be quite the chore. When I'm scrambling around the court trying to tie together rallies, hitting the center of the strings becomes secondary to just simply getting my racket on the ball. So by having very little response or power outside the sweet spot, I had difficulty getting defensive shots deep. I had a hard time gauging my lobs and often hit many defensive lobs short. Running forehands didn't have much power, although the bite of the strings really generated a lot of topspin if I was able to get under the ball and whip the racket head up. But on my outstretched backhands, I found the net far too often. I also would have preferred a bit more response on my ground strokes. The Solstice Power actually has some decent pocketing, which feels like a contradiction because I said it's a bit stiff, but it's only stiff because it doesn't feel like it dissipates vibrations that well. If you're not a feel-oriented player, you probably won't really notice this, but I've been playing tennis for almost 30 years and I am a finesse player, so I want something that sends good feedback to my hand and arm on ground strokes. That's because it feels like the ball comes off fast and gives me the confidence that I'm putting pressure on my opponents. Overall, I think the Solstice Power is a good string, albeit a bit misleading with the description on the package. If I were to use this string again, I would string it in a more responsive racket than the Diadem Nova, which is really dampened. Also, I would drop the tension probably to around 50, which is 4 pounds looser than this playtest to unlock a bit more power and forgiveness outside the sweet spot. So now, who is the Diadem Solstice Power string for? It's for players looking for massive spin and plays either an aggressive baseline game where they rely on driving opponents back with their forehands, like Rafael Nadal, or someone who likes to chip and slice, forcing opponents to have to contend with low balls. That's probably a minority of players, but I occasionally play with older gentlemen who love to chip and slice at my feet, so this string is good for players like that who want added spin. So now let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you tried the Diadem Solstice Power? What is your favorite Diadem string? Leave your comments below and I'll see you on the next review. Thank you for watching this review of the Diadem Solstice Power string right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.